So let's talk about Sinners, right? So if you don't mind, I'll do the
Oh,
synopsis for this, right? So for me, this was one of my one of my most highly anticipated films of the year. I just saw that one trailer that was set to clippings, Blood of the Fang. Clipping, for those who don't know, that's where, we boy David Diggs, that's his pretty much his experimental rap group is from. Well, that's the name of his rap group, the part of the group that he's from, basically, right? This experimental rap group, right? And they had a song called Blood of the Fang, which was from one of my favorite albums from there, called There Existed an Addiction to Blood, right? Which is where they embraced horrorcore and they used that to really touch on some really dark, grim like material as far as just social, just in terms of the world around us, right? They really tapped into really dark territory, right? When I saw the first trailer for this, I was blown away when I heard just the drum beat for it in that. I think I probably one of the
right,
few people who noticed that song in that trailer. I was like, oh shit, okay, that's where we're going,
right.
right? And I was just roped in from the jump, right? Just seeing Michael B. Jordan playing twins and it's Ryan Coogler and all that kind of stuff, right? And seeing that, yes, it is essentially a vampire story, but set in the deep south in the 30s, right? I was like, wow, okay, right? I didn't want to see any behind the scenes. I didn't want to see that one Kodak video on YouTube about aspect ratio. I didn't want to see that. I didn't even watch the second trailer. I wanted to go in as blind as I could, right? And it's a good thing that I did, right? But my concern going in, right, was the reception that it got, right? Because like
Right.
about a week or so, I saw, Rotten Tomatoes gave it 100%, and the movie hasn't
Right.
even come out. I like, okay, well, but the movie ain't come out yet, though. But all right, 100% is not. I mean, like, it's not the first time that a movie had 100% and then it just dipped down, right? That's not the first time. But the way how they hype this up is like, oh wow, this could be like the next big thing, right? And then I saw a couple of reviews, one in particular on RogerEbert.com, where it got 2.5 out of 4 stars. Like, okay, it's going to be one of those shows, right? Where, yes, the majority will say it's one of the greatest shows ever made, but then there'll be one or two people who'll be like, nah, not really. So I will share I will share my thoughts on where I fit in all of this, right? Or at least how I think about this, right? But yeah, what the show is about in a nutshell, right? Because we will get into spoilers, right? But here is spoiler-free territory, right? So you don't have to worry. So yes, it's set in 1932, where we're in the Mississippi Delta, right? We're introduced to the brothers of Smoke and Stack. That's what they call themselves. Smoke, well, basically Elijah and Elias Moore, right? But Elijah
Right.
goes by Smoke, Elias goes by Stack, right? And they both played by Michael B. Jordan, right? And
Right.
before I forget,
Quick question. So before we continue, quick question. So, uh, we call him Jonathan Majors was also be in this, right?
that's what you
And
told
he
me. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't remember. I thought he was supposed to be in stacks instead of, so it's just two brothers, not two twins. But here's the thing: it's a better call. Have him Michael B. Jordan play both roles, in my humble opinion. Because
Yeah.
that thematically really works. Like what they do with it.
It does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of set up early on, right? Unless you saw the posters for this, right? That Elias, as in Stack, he's the bad twin, right? He's the more shady
Right.
one, while this one is kind of
Well,
more good natured.
kinda.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
You're right.
set up early on that they both kind of conniving, right? They both shady,
Well,
right?
yeah, they're both different in their own way.
Yes,
And
yes,
it's
yes.
some interesting history. So like they were World War I, but they also worked for Al Capone, and so
Yes. Mhm.
it's 3 years after because Al Capone got arrested in 29, I think. So this is 32.
Yes, that's
So it's
correct.
like all right, that's interesting. Like little world building they did with that, and then they left in 25. So it's like, well, 4 years with Capone, 3 years on their own. Um, they do some interesting stuff with little the world building, and then coming back to the south, and then the relationship with the son. I'm sorry, with the cousin,
Yes,
and
yes,
how
yes.
initially they tell the cousin to say, hey, look, Chicago, it isn't that much different, to be honest. Like, and look, that's good commentary.
Right.
Why this really works is the commentary. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So Sam, that would be the cousin of the Moors, right? He's
Right.
established early on as the son of a preacher. And by the way,
Yeah.
this is the debut feature film
Debut
performance
premiere, yeah.
by
He's some kind of musical
Miles
genius,
Cat.
apparently.
Yeah, by Miles Keaton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Right. So again, keeping things spoiler free, right? So we basically seen a day in the life of these characters, right? So yeah, Elijah, Smoke and Stack, sorry, setting up a juke joint, right? And if you're familiar
Right.
with films that set around that, well, probably the perfect example is The Color Purple, both the original
Right.
and the remake. Yeah, it's just like a nightclub, right? That's deep in the woods,
Right.
right? And people go there and get drunk and wild out and dance to blues music and shit, right? That's what it is, right? It's for them to just wild out. That's what it is, right? So yeah, they're setting all this up. They actually bought the property and they just sort of getting things together, right? They hook up with this Chinese couple who run in this store, and they're the ones who are gonna
Right.
organize the alcohol, right? They hook up. They meet with
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of stuff like
yes.
like
Just getting the
they had to
gang
make a
together. Yeah.
sign. Yeah, they have to get a sign. They have to get a bunch of things. Like yeah, they just also well, the alcohol part becomes relevant later because you learn where to get the alcohol from and how that's relevant to the narrative. So that's all of that. So yeah, go ahead.
Right. Also, yeah. They also meet this harmonica player by the name of Delta Slim, who is played brilliantly
Right.
by Delroy Lindo, and also they meet up with our old friend by the name of Cornbread, who is played by Omar Benson Miller. You would remember him from
Right.
from 8 Mile. He also make appearance in Transformers. He's a paying show,
Yeah.
right? He's that guy.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, solid character actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big when I knew I was going to see something special as well. Seeing Saul Williams in this at the beginning, I'm like, oh shit.
Yes.
Saul Williams plays the kid's dad. I was like, oh, that's like really okay. He in this, all right. So I know we getting something interesting and deep and like we get like they have well we will get to the scene because it's by far one of the most interesting scenes in cinema probably in the I have no problem saying the 21st century, but just probably probably ever.
Yeah.
You see a Zauli dancer, Dread. Like, all right, Coogler, you're cooking here, man. That's really interesting stuff, too. So, yeah, go ahead.
Right. So where things start to pick up now is that on the night of the launch of this juke joint, a couple of, or I should say three white strangers pop up outside. They're like, yeah, we want to come inside. We play music too, let us in. But they're like, no, we can't let you all in because you're white and you're probably associated with the KKK. Because yes, there is some KKK stuff going on, right? And it's revealed that they are vampires, and we get what is essentially, just like a 30s Deep South Southern Gothic take on, From Dusk Till Dawn, right? Where the show starts off one way, like the first half is one thing, and it just switches into something else, right? So
this I mean, most people say this, but it does feel like a more coherent, cogent version of Dusk Till Dawn, right?
Right.
But why? But it's much more because it does a lot of like symbolism and thematic stuff that's really like synthesized in a way that shouldn't work. And I make the joke. I just use this as generally an insult, but in this case, it's not. Coogler kind of gave us a genre gumbo, right?
Yes.
It's mixed in all the right ways, a lot of interesting ideas, and then the true line of culture and music really like puts the whole thing together in a fascinating way because it's not just vampires. Like I forget her name, but we call her B13 from Loki now.
McGill Wanmi Mosaku was there. Like the moment I see her, I was like, you in this, nice.
Right, what they do to her, do with her to have her explain the situation is like, oh no, it's more general mythology that have nothing necessarily to do with vampires. Vampires is just part of this world, right? This is more like this show now. Oh god, that another Southern Gothic show. Oh gosh, True Blood.
Yeah, True Blood. Yeah.
The world we live in is more comparable to something like True Blood, where it's like, oh, vampires exist, but it have other shit too.
Yes.
And all of them attracted by this thing, and then you find out what that thing is. Like, all right, this is really fascinating, like interesting magical realism stuff, magical reality stuff. And like, all right, I see what you're doing here, and they make it relevant. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so jump to spoiler-free thoughts, right? Just give me a sec. I'll make it quick, right? So for me, I enjoy the film, right? I did not have the privilege of seeing it in IMAX, even though a lot of people say you need to see it in IMAX because it's shot on 70mm and it looked great. But I saw it on a relatively large screen in Caribbean cinemas because that's close to where I live, and I thought it looked great. It just looked fantastic. The cinematography by Autumn Dural Akapour, first time I'm hearing about her, was stellar in my opinion. This looks great, right?
Yeah.
I love that it has that old timey look to it, and then especially when the genre stuff comes in with the gangster stuff and the vampire stuff, it has sort of a grindhousey kind of feel to things, right? I like how raw, the script was, how especially with the juke joint stuff, right? Exactly. Things get hot and heated and sexual, right? I like
You know,
that.
it's
Yeah.
it's 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 a workable promiscuity about it that really
Yes.
fits into it. Now. Again, all eyes part of it. It doesn't feel like out of place. They mention all you need to know is just somebody mentioned talking about ice cream earlier. That's all you need to know.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
that's what, right. But
Exactly.
yeah, that's
And
a great. It builds someone that is totally relevant. It's not like out of nowhere.
no,
They
no,
make
no.
it a thing. As I
Yeah.
said, it really does feel like Dusseldor. Like, and
Yeah.
I know for I understand Coogler used Dusseldor as one of his reference points.
Right.
With respect to the villain, but uh he sets up this thing, but what he does is the synthesis of ideas. That's the trick. That's the
Yes.
trick. Like that's why it works, especially when you find out what the boys, for lack of a better term, power is, right? So that's it works. Like it's really good stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And all that fits within the whole Southern Gothic thing, right? Where, it's about the atmosphere and how hot
Right.
everything is, right? So there's all this talk about sin and like I love the fact that it's set on Saturday. It's like, oh, you have
Right.
this Saturday night to while out and have fun, but don't worry, go
Right.
to church the next day, right? And you see what
Right.
happens the
Right. Right.
next day, right? That totally works, right? The performances across the board are great. I mean, Michael B. Jordan
Everybody's good.
shines. I love
Everybody's
that.
good this year.
Yes, even though
Yeah.
they both brothers are on some shady shit, I love that there is, there's differences between
Yeah.
amongst both characters, right? I really love that, right? Miles Keaton though, he really shines, right,
Yeah.
as Sammy, right? You
Yeah.
buy into him just being this guy who, like, all right, look, I just want to get out, I just want to have fun. Don't worry, Dad, I'll be in church next day. I just see him in this world where it's like, all right, well, look, all this stuff, all this bacchanal in front of me, right? I mean, look, let me just dive and like, so you're in with him and you're just being like swept away by all the carnal stuff that's around him, right? And then when shit hits the fan, you see how he reacts to, right? I thought that the supporting cast was great as well. I love how pretty much all the main and side characters are incorporated into this, right? Especially when they find themselves, pretty much trapped in this club, in this house, basically for an entire night, right? Dealing with all this vampires and stuff like that, right? Shout out to my boy Ludwig Göransson, because I didn't know that
Yes.
honestly, I did not know
Great.
that he was doing the score for this, right? No, minor gripe, right? I felt like, all right, so there's this establishing team that at first when I heard it, I was like, I'm not really feeling this, because I went in expecting this to be more of like blues music, right? And you might hear some kind of dark music here or there, right? But I didn't expect to hear basically acoustic, sorry, not acoustic. I didn't expect to hear
Right.
electric guitars in that moment, right? So it's just basically like menacing music that you hear when the vampires pop up. When I heard it, I was like, nah, I don't understand. But to the show's credit, and this is what I love about what Ludwig did, right? He incorporated a lot of the various like genres into his music, right?
Right.
And it reflects in, yes, the moment that you alluded to, which is a great moment, which you get into spoiler territory, where you see the evolution of blues music, right? You see the evolution of
Yeah,
it over the decades,
they make that, yeah, because it's like a kind of mirrored version of or at least a direct allusion to, we call him Robert Johnson, our famous Robert Johnson story. I
Okay.
was like, oh right, that's what that where it come from, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they play with that really really well, and that's where a lot of this like stick with me. It does conceits of legends. It really remind me of a little bit like we call it gosh, the one with John Majors as a cowboy. Shit.
Oh,
I don't mind, right.
oh gosh, they had
And another,
they had
they
it
had
fall,
it
they
come.
had it fall,
Right,
how
yeah,
they
they
fall,
pull,
they fall,
had it right.
they fall, yeah,
Yeah. And it's where it plays with a lot of conceits of like, oh, this is the actual history of this, but this is the thematic aspect of this, and it doesn't like try to fight it on with this nitpicking history stuff. But yeah, that's why I think it's a lot smarter than I thought it was. I didn't expect it to be this smart or this deep.
yeah,
In terms of its conceits, and so that's it. And,
yeah.
I think,
Oh,
and then
well,
another thing too, like, go ahead, and I'll make move.
okay, all right. So I'll wrap up here, right? So like you, I didn't expect that the show was going to touch on all these themes in terms of music and the history of blues, right? And yeah, if you're a music nerd, the argument will be made that if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have rock, you wouldn't have hip hop, right? I love how the show embodies that as well, right? And it touches on a lot of themes, so it's not just about the vampire stuff, right? That being said, though, I felt, and this is just me going off of the hype that was surrounding the film, right? I felt that this is, for me, I'll just say right out of the gate, this is a film that I feel like I need to rewatch again because
Right.
people
Of
are
course.
hyping this up to be like the next Get Out, where it's just this
Right.
groundbreaking horror film that touch on issues that face African Americans, all that kind of stuff, which it does, right? It does, right? But at the same time, I felt like this is more Nope than Get Out, right?
Okay.
Where I
Right. Right.
felt Get Out was just a simple, straightforward kind of psychological horror film, right? But it had
Right.
social commentary to it, right? The story was simple. I don't want to say simple. It was straightforward enough, right?
Right.
Nope, for
But
example.
it just gets
Yeah.
more depth than they give it credit for.
Right. Nope in retrospect though. Nope in comparison, sorry, had a
Yeah.
lot
Nope
of
is
things going on, right? Where it's not
yeah.
just
Exactly.
about the alien invasion. It's not just about Daniel Kaluuya and Kiki Palmer. It's Kiki Palmer, right?
So I actually don't think it's an alien, to be honest. But
You're right. Exactly. So it's an
I mean,
alien.
point.
Right. So it's an alien. It's not an alien. It's about, black representation in film.
But
It's
it's about
not that.
spectacle.
It's about a lot of things, right?
Right.
This is what
Right.
Sinners felt like to me. There's a lot of things going on. And for me, I went and all right, I'll put it like this, right? Just, I don't want to spend too long because we have to get into spoiler territory, right? I wanted to come out of this unsettled. I wanted to come out of it shook. I wanted to be not
Right,
scared, but just like, all right, I've been through a horror experience. I
Right.
didn't really
And it's
feel
not
that
that.
with this,
It's
unfortunately.
not that. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
horror movie in that sense.
That's the thing. That's one
That's
of
not
the
what is.
that's
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
not what is
letdowns I had is that I didn't
Oh, okay.
come
So
out with
you were let down by that. Like for me, is the opposite. Like what they do with it, especially the ending, the reveal at the ending. Because like I mentioned Saul Williams, but who he grows up to be is like, oh shit, Buddy Guy Dread. Like, all right,
yeah,
that's
which we will get Ricardo in the spoilers. We jump in the gun.
Right.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
So as a wrap up, one sec. As a wrap up, yeah. As a wrap up. Yeah, so I did not expect the narrative twists and turns, right? And for me, just off of first viewing, I felt like the third act just was throwing a lot of stuff at me, just
Right.
trying to reinforce certain things. And it's not about the vampire stuff anymore. It's about all these other things. And yes, there is a mid-credit scene. People saying that there was a post-credit scene, but I didn't stick around for
Right.
it. The mid-credit ran long enough, so I was like, all right, well, I don't need to
Right.
see anymore, right? But yeah,
Well, I thought that was the ending actually. So I didn't see it.
yeah,
I don't know if
I could be
I
wrong.
don't
Maybe
know.
there's more to it than that, right? But yeah,
Right, no
it
problem.
just felt as a whole that there was just a lot of things going on, and it wasn't just the thing that I had expected to be, right? Which is both a good and bad thing for me. Good in the sense that I like that Ryan was trying new things out, and like just putting a lot of like really creative ideas into his story, right? But not so good in the sense that I still ultimately came in expecting a vampire story, or at least
Right.
characters having to deal with a problem over the course of a night, right? But it was just about so much other things. I felt like that story just kind of got lost in all this like creative, I don't want to say noise, but all this creative clutter, if you will, right? So I just felt like if the story was just a little more streamlined, a little bit more straightforward, but still keep the thematic stuff, still keep the stuff about African American history and all that, still keep it there, right? But kind of balance it out in such a way where I can get those things, I could get those thematic layers if I were to rewatch it like 3 or 4 more times. But in
Right.
essence, I could still get that basic. Characters have to stick it out for a night while they're dealing with supernatural elements. If we had just stuck with that just a little bit more, I feel I would have enjoyed the film more than I did, right? So yeah,
Okay.
this is a film just like Nope, where I feel like I have to rewatch it. Like I feel like if I just watch it over like just one time without thinking about the hype and the 4-star ratings and all that kind of stuff, I would appreciate it and probably love it a lot more than I did, right? But for me, just to give my rating one time and then you'll get into spoiler territory, this for me still gets a light 4 out of 5, right? I feel like if I just watch it again, I'll enjoy it more. But it's just the thematic stuff I felt sort of subdued the essence of what I felt the movie was supposed to be about, which is, just the basic, like if it was just just to take out all these other things and just boil everything down to its basic construct, if you will, right? I was expecting this to be, all right, characters hold up in a house, they had to do with vampires. But I felt like because Ryan just had all these other ideas, and apparently they kind of alluding at sequels or whatever it is. It had to
Right.
be much more, which is fine, but I felt like just the other stuff just sort of clouded the essence of what I felt this movie could have been. So that's my spoiler-free thoughts. So yeah, Ricardo, your spoiler-free thoughts, rating, and then we'll jump into spoiler territory. Okay, there's a few things I just want to mention that worked, and a few things again like I feel I just need to rewatch and be like, oh, okay, that's what I feel
Right.
again. All right, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen this work both critically and financially. Really felt like a nature's healing moment for me. At least when it comes to films, like just people complaining about you need original shit and it have to make money at the same time. That it doesn't make the money in a sense, right? Like it already make a good chunk of its own budget back already. First weekend, nice solid stuff. But yeah, as I said before, it felt like a coherent and cogent dusted dawn, but more in terms of meme symbolism, the synthesized ideas and premises really come together really well. And that's why I didn't really have a problem with it, because when the vampire, I forget the guy's name, he was pretty good though, the main villain. The kind of prime vampire who was like who sired all the others. When he explained the situation, like, all right, they flipped the conceit in a really smart way. And yeah, like much like with Lovecraft Country, the real horror show is just the actual reality. Like if it was just natural,
Right,
flipping it on
that's
its
the
head.
show you were talking about, right? Lovecraft. It's more Lovecraft Country than True Blood, to be honest. But yeah, same
No,
southern
I was thinking of
horror.
I was thinking of both True Blood and Lovecraft Country.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
but True Blood is like the whole world building of it, because it's not just vampires. We know it have Mourner, but vampires just happen to be this one-off situation. As I mentioned, it could have all kind of sequels or whatever it is they could do now. But that doesn't really matter, because like again, we're not getting to spoilers for now. But yeah, and then as I said, given I know I was seeing something special when we get into you see a Zauli dancer. It's like, this man real cooking here, but you're doing good. And yeah, again, Saul Williams, once you see Saul Williams, all right, you're getting something interesting. And that's the general worldview of it. And, it has a workably black experience, especially as American and blues, but they do it as a more Pan-African conceit. And that works. And, you could, we will see a lot of back and forth with respect to that. But it's just really like interesting, much smarter, deeper ideas than I expected. I was expecting something straightforward, and we didn't get that. Right? I can see a lot of people loving this film going on in the future. It's again much like how people love Get Out. It's like that. But as you say, it's like Nope, right? There's a lot of interesting themes there, like what to do with how people see us, how they see each other, how they go back and forth with respect to the conceits of violence. Like the big reveal. Remember at the beginning, you say what they was cleaning off the floors, right? That comes back relevant. It's like, okay, what that place was before they bought it. There are little small things like that. And these things will add up and make it work. And yeah, it's really, really smart stuff about the Jim Crow South, but all about music. And I really like how this comes together. It's something that could have easily fall apart. And I think Coogler ties it together really, really intelligently and makes it work
Right.
for what it is. And yeah, it's just really, really solid stuff for what it was. Yeah, I can't be mad at this. Like I just really, really dug this. I could see why people are loving it. Mostly because music comes together really well. And it's just the whole thing. Actors, as I say, I don't know if you mentioned about Haley Steinfeld was pretty good in this, especially when they explain what going on with her and her backstory. She's really good. Delroy Lindo's must stand out. I really enjoyed him. But everybody does have the whole working conceit of it. I don't think. As I said, okay, so if I'm looking for a genuinely not a kind of downside to the film, is the action. Like that last action sequence felt a bit rushed. At least how it was set up. But
agreed,
again, that was
agreed. Yeah, it was
focused.
just it's not so much the editing; it's just the pacing of it is a little. Yeah,
Right,
it is rushed.
yeah,
It is rushed.
slightly wonky piece. Yeah, a little rushed, as they say. But and then the way how they cut it, but it's paid off later, involving a certain brother and another brother. At the end, I thought, oh, okay, and then they pay it off after. I was like, all right, that works. But at the time, I was like, not. It's kind of weird what they do with that. But I dug it for what it was. As I said, the vampire stuff was this ancillary. It wasn't even important. And that is why most of this was just solid routing for me, all things considered. So yeah, but really loved it, really great, dug the hell out of it.
All right, so spoiler territory. You've been warned.
Sure.
Right? So well, just to touch on the whole setup with everything, right? The inclusion of the whole Klansman stuff, I thought was great, right? Just the mere fact that, this place that they used for the juke joint, basically, it was an old sawmill, right? That the Klansmen
Well,
use, right?
a slaughterhouse, right? You
Well,
can
right,
say because
exactly, yeah,
right,
yeah.
but not for animals, but for people. It
That's
was
right,
like
yeah.
a lynching space, effectively, right?
Yeah. Now what? Now like for me, right? I was not thinking that we would see more of the KKK stuff, right? In the
Right.
film,
Me
right?
too. Yeah,
If
me
they
too. Yeah.
did, I probably would have like I assume we probably would have gotten that like in the middle of the film, right? Or like right
Right.
around the time when the chaos with the vampire stuff started, right? But we wait until the after, well, when the shit after the shit hits the fan, basically, right? But I'll get to that in a bit, right? If it's one thing I do praise the film for is the symbolism, right? So I like when the head vampire Remick, that's his name, right? Played by
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack O'Connell, right? You notice
Right.
when he's introduced, right? In terms of like how the scene is blocked, right? You see how it looks almost like he just falls out of the sky,
Right.
almost like a fallen angel. I like that. It's one
Right.
of those blinking and missing moment thing. But I noticed like,
Yeah.
hey, it's like
Right.
a Lucifer kind of reference. Oh, I get,
Right.
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 But in this
Yeah, I get all of
case,
that.
yeah,
But we don't get the fallout where the characters who I would like to think these guys as descendants of Bone Tomahawk, right? The Indian vampire one does, right?
yeah. If I have another gripe, just as we spoil territory, I wish we got more of that because I
Of
mean,
course,
yes,
yeah,
like I like
exactly.
that. Okay, we're seeing African Americans in the deep south. Okay, cool. We see a few white people here or there. Fine, no problem. Some of them on shit, i.e. the KKK. That's okay, right? But when they bring in those like Native Americans, it's like, all right, they're just there for like one scene. It's like, oh, they're looking for them, and then like they
Right.
just cut to the next scene.
So I
But I want
gather,
to
how
see
I
more
gather
of
that.
them. Like where I
Yeah,
want to see more of them.
I gather again. I think of it as more the symbolism of it, as not so much the narrative. Because I sort of kind of read the movie, not like the hard logic of events causally, but like, oh, Indians trying to warn you of blah blah blah, and you should get rid of this thing, but you didn't, and now we kind of just had to bust out. That's how I kind of interpret it. Not like you don't have to necessarily think that because they could have shown up a little later. Because I thought they were coming in for the rescue at the end.
Me
But I
too.
know,
I thought so too.
yeah,
At least, or at least they would have tried to
yeah,
get into the juke joint. When shit was started to hit the fan, right? Like they would have just
right,
pop up
right,
and be like, "All right, hey, we know how to take care of these vampires, blah blah blah," right? But in this case, I do like Wigil One Me, right, who plays Annie, right, who is
right.
the let me just say it, the baby
Well,
mama of Elijah,
right. Well,
I,
we
I
know that,
like
right?
that
Yeah,
she
yeah.
is the one who knows a lot because she is
Well,
into
she's
spiritualism and all that kind of stuff.
right.
So
Well,
yeah,
hoodoo. Right. Well, hoodoo.
hoodoo,
Yeah,
right, exactly,
hoodoo from
yes,
because she's from New Orleans. They do all of that. They play with all of that. You hear her speak a little French, so it's okay. They established that.
yeah,
Uh but she like knows the like a Wiccan mythology, right? She thought it was this, but it's not that. But it's this,
yes,
and they set that up reasonably well.
right,
As it is. But yeah, I was thinking that, and I was thinking Boon Tomahawk. But I was also thinking like another movie that just this kind of remind me of it in terms of like the parallel conceits of real world horror versus supernatural horror, which is blood quantum, right?
I
Stuff like that.
didn't
Like,
see that. No,
yeah, blood quantum kind of gooted, right? But it plays with that same ideas of how to square the real world horror with the supernatural horror, and then the idea that the supernatural horror, if it was real, you'd probably choose that, right? Like they play with that premise so well, as it is especially when the guy kind of makes his claim towards the thing, and well, the one when Status becomes a vampire, that I really like that, like when they do with it, and then at the ending when he smoke does not kill Stax, uh and he basically the idea was, all right, well, you two get away. Again, because of the action, I couldn't follow what happened to Celie Steinfeld exactly. Um, Apparently she ran away, but they cut
yeah,
it kind of weird.
it was just one shot of her running into the woods, and that was it. That's all I saw. Yeah,
Yeah. So like they leave it as the working conceit of, oh, just leave this boy alone, you know, and you get to live your life as vampires forever, whatever it is. And they play with that, and then well, and it's interesting they use that date. I can't remember if when why that date, and somebody could probably explain it to me, but I couldn't follow. I didn't do any research as to why, but yeah, in the early 90s, right? They meet him again as an old person in the mid credit scene. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
that's what going on here? Why have
that in particular caught me completely by surprise.
completely by surprise?
Just the
Yes,
end of it. Well, forgive
yes,
us, folks, but we were going to save that end for last. But since we're here, we can talk about it, right? Yeah, I didn't expect that end where we would see Sammy grow up to be this old blues musician,
right,
right? Who is played
right.
by a real life musician, Buddy Guy, right? I thought that was really
But the
cool as
guy,
well, right?
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It really caught me completely by surprise, right? But yeah, I did
Right.
not expect the mid-credit scene. I think, one of my friends who was with me say, stick around. There's that, right? So, mad props to Ruth Carter, right? Again, this is her reuniting with Ryan Coogler because, she worked on them Black Panther films, right? Yeah,
Right,
I love the outfits that Stack and Mary, who's played by Haley Stanfield, had.
yeah.
Yeah, very early '90s stuff. Even right down to the shades that Stack has, right? Very Kadeem
Right.
Hardison,
Yeah,
different work kind of shit. I was like, I like that,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that moment catch me by surprise. But I'll watch this, right? And it could have easily played in the cliche where, we were looking for you all this time and now we found you, so yeah, we gotta bite you. But I like that, they give him the choice that, you could be with us and, you could be free, right? Which is the same
Right.
choice that Remick I believe, give to Sami, right? In their
Right.
climatic fight and whatnot, right? But he just seems like, well, no, he's content with where he is. But I like that.
Yeah, they set up the working mythology of once you become a vampire, you will die. You'll live forever on Earth, but you will die.
Yes, eventually you will die. Yeah.
As opposed to going to an afterlife, because Smokes presumably goes to an afterlife of some sort, a heaven or the ancestors or whatever it is. And sure, he kills I forget the wife name, but he kills the ex with the baby, and all of them go to heaven. So that is why you don't choose to be a vampire, because you will die.
Right.
Like, that's the idea. Does the material will matter or not? There's a supernatural afterlife, presumably. That's the implication. Like, that was why it is. There's a really good reason why to not to become a vampire.
Yeah.
And I like how they play with that. Like, it's good stuff, though.
And
it's really good stuff.
Like, the more I think about it. Go on, sorry for cutting.
No, yeah, like why it is you would give a shit about the world or struggle about this world if you're gonna die anyway. You can play with it. There are a lot of thematic concepts to play with, like in terms of people struggling, black people struggling, what black freedom means in that sense, and so on and so forth. And they really do there's a lot to unpack. And I'm gonna be seeing TikTok for months about this shit, right? But
you talk about TikTok, I talk about I looking forward to YouTube video essays about that shit, right? I would not be surprised if Signified B-Sides put out something, because one of his posts he say, he fuck with the film. He love it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the usual crowd gonna have good tell you about it, right? So it's solid stuff in that sense. It's just a surprisingly much deeper and smarter film than I gave it. I was expecting. I was expecting just a fun thing, and we didn't get that. We just get something much, in my opinion, much more emotionally intelligent.
All right.
Than expected.
Yeah, so a few things for you with the spoiler stuff, right? So, in retrospect, right, now that I think about it, I like that scene did not go into cliche territory where it's like, Stacks bites Sammy, right? It's just like, their lives were changed, but for what it was changed. Their lives were changed for the better.
Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, he promised his brother. And you could understand that. Like, that's the whole point of the vampire thing. Like, he promised his brother, and it's really two attitudes towards the world. And I say character-wise, it's good stuff. And that's why it work if with Michael B. Jordan playing against himself, it really is two people. It could interpret it as the same soul split in two kind of thing. No?
Right.
There's a whole thing with that, right?
Yeah. All right. The juke joint stuff I really, really dug. I like that it plays on the whole. All right. It's hell. It's carnal. A lot of orange and red lights and whatnot. Yeah. Everybody just being horny AF. Even right down to Sammy as well too. Yeah. Sammy. Yeah. The man took his opportunity. He took his shot and he took it. I can't be mad at that. I love how it's reflected in the music. We didn't mention this character, Pearline, who's played by Jamie Lawson, right? Who was in the Batman. I now realize that she was the mayor in the Batman. I did not know that, right?
Yeah.
But I like that.
Batman and Penguin, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing this blues song, and she's just getting so deep into it, right? Crawling on the floor and all that kind of stuff. It works, right? But it's really the moment where Sammy starts singing and playing his guitar, right? And then I love just that idea that, he is channeling these spirits through music, right? Because that's one thing that we always like to see with music, right? we channeling in the spirits, all that kind of stuff. But the idea that draws in the vampires worked for me, right? So two things. Yes, that sequence where you see the evolution of music totally worked. It caught me completely by surprise,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
hearing blues music, but then I'm seeing basically a rock artist, right? A black rock artist, right? Then afterwards, I'm seeing a DJ, from the 80s. I'm seeing B-boys. I'm seeing all that. I was like, whoa,
I was
what is
thinking
this?
who that is. I was wondering who that is exactly. Like, it's like a funkadelic, but it's not a real person, like a hypothetical, like Afrofuturist kind of person.
Well, I was thinking it was Saul Williams. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but I was wondering if it was him.
Yeah.
Like he just played
Right,
dual
maybe.
roles or something like that, right?
Right.
But
But then it's very, and the whole thing is very, what is the Kendrick Lamar Tupac song though? Okay, was it that song by,
the Hard Part 6.
No, oh gosh,
Reincarnated. Reincarnated.
It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
it's very that. Like, it's that whole aspect of it, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I also love too is, because the two Chinese characters are there. Yes, you are seeing these Peking style dances there as well. So it's not just about the evolution of black music, but also the evolution of Chinese culture and music as well, right? Well, dance basically, right? So I love how it's embodied in there, right? But I just love the fact that this is what draws these vampires in. Just the mere fact that this guy who could sing very well and he has a guitar is able to channel all these spirits, right? And I love the fact that these vampires do their own version of it, right? So I love that, Remick is channeling from his Irish ancestry, right? So he's singing like these Irish, tunes as well, and everybody's singing it as well because they have this hive mind thing. And if I want other gripe too, they could have kind of explain that logic how everybody have a hive mind once you bite, once you get bit.
I just assume let's assume it's vampire powers, like whatever.
So all of a sudden, Cornbread, who get bite, he's singing the song too. They can explain that just a little bit more. That's the working logic behind the vampires, right? But yeah, just the mere fact that they are doing their own version of what these people doing inside the juke joint, I thought that was fantastic, right? And lastly, before we wrap things up, right? I also like the fact that we still got the vampire tropes here or there, right? There's a great moment that references the Thing, as in John Carpenter's The Thing. This is the moment where it's like, Annie's like, all right, you need to eat these, a garlic each. Like, you need to eat garlic. So we need to know which one of us is a vampire. Yeah, that's a reference to the Thing, right? Where it's like, you need to do this test, and whoever failed the test, he's the alien or whatever it is, right? That was great. I really dug that, right? So I like that. It still had those, I want to call them slightly meta moments where it's like, yes, we're doing the vampire movie stuff, we're doing the, characters hold up in a place trope, we're doing that, right? But just for me, again, just to wrap things up, I just felt like it was sort of, how to say, it just got a little too carried away with doing all these other sub-themes and plots and references and all that. They sort of forgot that, hey, it could still be a horror film too, Like it could, like that's why I personally felt like I wasn't shook, I wasn't unsettled. Like it could still throw in all the references and the social commentary here and there, but I still went to this movie wanting to be scared in quotes, and I came out like, nah, not really.
No, it wasn't that. Yeah.
And if I just just mention one last thing, right? Maybe when I rewatch it, it'll make sense. But I felt like that the last moments with Elijah and him facing off against the KKK, just kind of like, I felt they could have sequenced, they could have fit that in a little smoother. It just sort of came in because, like, I remember from the first trailer where it's like, oh, you're seeing Elijah, trying to roll the cigarette and he's shaking, right? And then it ends with him pulling out the Tommy gun and firing it, right? I was like, hey, the movie almost done, but we don't get to that, right? So when it comes up and it's about the same KKK guys from before, coming up to clean up the mess, right? All right, I understand that, but I felt they could have just kind of sequenced that a little bit better. Like, I guess maybe if the KKK people was there a little bit earlier, or at least we knew, hinted that they were going to come, I felt it would have worked for me.
No, the guy, the vampire mentioned that because
I know.
You need to rewatch it because it's like that's the whole point. They come into destroy the place. That was the whole idea. They take the man money, and the thing is, he was remember he was the head of the KKK, using the dragon. So it's that.
Yes,
it's all of that. Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, folks, this is a show that I definitely need to rewatch again because I did not expect all the other subplots, all the other themes and whatnot. And yes, they do work for the most part, right? But I just felt like just off of first viewing, they could have coalesced a little bit more, right? And I have no problem with Ryan being ambitious, right? I mean, this is technically his first non-IP foray into blockbuster territory, right? So I can't be mad at what
Yeah,
he did, right?
I think it's like since it's probably his truly original like material though for the most
Yeah.
part, because Fruitvale State was a real thing, Creed is a spin-off, and then
And
Black Panther.
Panther,
It's like, it's like, all
those
right,
films,
wow.
right?
Okay. I know. I find it's just a great idea. It comes together really well and works. So yeah, good.
It's just for me. I did not expect all the other stuff. Like I just wanted
Yeah.
deep.
I
I just wanted deep South vampire shit, and I just got so much
now we
more
get-
stuff that I just felt like I just kind of still wanted deep South vampire shit, right? But maybe
Right.
similar to Nope, and to an extent, what the fuck? Yes, to an extent. Yeah, Jordan Peele's like Us and even Get Out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if I just watch it over again without thinking about the praise, 'cause I think that's another issue that like I think like people who go in with the hype in the back of their minds, with the hype in their heads, they probably will be like, a little overhyped, a little too much, blah blah blah, right? Because
Right.
a lot of people coming out like 5 out of 5 and all that kind of stuff, right? But I feel like if I just go in and not think about the hype surrounding the film and just watch the film for what it is and see how the story plays out, I may be a little bit more charitable to the fact that it wasn't as scary as I wanted it to be. And appreciate the show more for what it is, right? But this is truly an ambitious piece of ambitious work from Ryan Coogler, and I want to see him do more films like this, like just really stretch his creative range. And I really felt like he did that here, right? I didn't expect the stretches, but I can't be mad that he stretched as far as he did, right? But just to do the rating one more time. Like 4 out of 5. It is definitely worth checking out on the big screen, right? But this is one that, and I mean, I guess this is just a testament to how great the movie will be in the long run. You won't get everything on your first viewing, and that's fine. That's okay. So I feel like if I rewatch it again, last point I'll make, similar to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which I didn't love the first time I saw it, but then when I watched it again, I was like, yep, I get it, and I love the film. I feel it'll be that same exact way with Sinners. And I could see it being in my best stuff for sure. Not honorable mention, but best stuff, right? But I feel like I need to rewatch this again. And I would say for those people going in, seeing it for the first time, definitely see it. But I do think that even if you enjoy it as much as Ricardo did, or didn't enjoy it as much as, or you kind of came out slightly underwhelmed, like how I felt, I really do think that it is worth seeing again, especially on the big screen. I think that this is a show that deserves to be experienced at least once on the big screen. And I'll stop there. So, Ricardo, your final thoughts.
For me, it's the opposite. I went in. I didn't see too much material. I know it had a lot of hype for it. Like, plus Ryan Coogler show up on John It's like TikTok and shit like that. Like, so there was real pushing it. But I was so glad this was so much different than what I expected. I was expecting this, and again, I was expecting a straightforward vampire horror thing, like in the same vein as a Dustle Dawn, and I got so much more, and I really like that, and I'm glad I didn't super hype myself for this or anything like that. I just went in thinking I was going to get this. I was expecting this, and we got so much more, and that is why it blew up for me. Because it was such a nice surprise, and it didn't. It's something that, again, it could have fallen apart, and it didn't at all, in my humble opinion. So rated 9 out of 10. Loved it.